I am Edwin Kwesi Bodjawah. I work as an artist and I teach in the university as well. I research a lot into African masking systems and how they relate to the contemporary world. And so the masks in themselves have been very important symbols and signs in the African past, in terms of order, in terms of initiation rites, in terms of passing on histories to other people. Masking ceremonies has always been at the heart of African culture. It was just because of the missionization and the colonization of the continent that a lot of these practices went underground under the pretext of fetishism and so on and so forth. But these were actually cultural institutions which passed on histories and knowledge, transmitted them from one generation to the other. So I researched into those things, not to go back and carve those same forms or those sort of performances which were communal in nature, but to reinterpret them into the politics of today's world. I basically go and look at masks that have been gone through a lot of museumification, found their ways to the global north economies and museums and texts from ethnographers who only were interested in the objects without the histories and so on and so forth. And to some extent, these masks have influenced the early modernists, the cubists, the fauvists, the expressionists, Braque, Picasso, and so on and so forth, who were only concerned about the object and not any cultural or political implications. So I try to look at more modern industrial material that we find around ourselves and try to reinterpret them, reproduce them, because the masking ceremonies were they themselves reproduce cyclical, annual, and so on and so forth, because in times of planting, ceremonies were done, the whole community was involved and so on and so forth. So I try to look at a world growing too individualistic now and try to see what we can get from the African past in terms of communal ways of doing things, as it's the masking ceremony, which were cross-generational in nature: textiles, dance, drama, sculpture, carving, involves all the society. I mean, children, adults, kings, queens, and the whole community were involved in sometimes even the mask making and so on and so forth, the ceremonies that accompanied it. So I try to look at what sort of society we are in now, which is masked by a lot of exploitation, such masks that have really gone or been canonized because of what they've gone through. Of course, they ended up in Europe through exploitative means, through looting, through trade sometimes, through, the missionaries collected some of these things and the ethnographers and so on and so forth at the time. And so I go back, sort of mine the museum a little. I have used masks that have been used to honor people, women, adults, masks of honor. I've used Baoli masks, I've used Buru Senifo masks, I've used Maka masks, I've used Gelede masks, significant masks that were, that unify the community in terms of agrarian ceremonies, in terms of initiation, in terms of installation of chiefs, in terms of sometimes just entertainment, and so on and so forth. So these are the kind of masks that I use. I've also recently worked on the Nimba mask. One good thing about the African past was the communal nature that the society was in. A man kills a goat for meals and he takes part to the uncle or the neighbors or the extended family, and they share things together. You can find those things in today's world. The family goes to farm, the kid carries a little food or the water to drink at the farm, and so on. Others go cutlasses, others carry things that will plant, and so on and so forth. So the communal nature of the African society is something which has gradually waded away with development and so on. Of course, I don't say we should go back to, I'm not idealizing the past, but these are things that we could take from these things. In terms of masking, the nature of it was still very communal. The processes of making, training young boys how to carve and so on, and then we make them the bush schools and so on, and so, those activities. So apart from the performances that they were associated with, I look at materials or objects that have intervened in the lives of people on the continent, such that when I take, for instance, the corrugated roofing sheets, these were materials that were introduced through colonization, because the Europeans, or the British for that matter, Africa and other Belgians and so on, the French and so on, these materials were brought to the continent for temporary structures and so on and so forth. But if you take a close look at the history of it, the type or the thickness of the sheets that were brought to Africa were very thin. What we call they use a system of measurement called a Birmingham wire gauge. But those that were left in Europe were thick, and so the buildings were meant to last. Now, these sort of sheets intervened in our architecture, our way of building, and so on and so forth. So, if you go back to somewhere on the Krobo Hills, if you go back to the ministries in Accra, and so many colonial structures, and even to today, these corrugated roofing sheets have been used for. A lot of them have become dilapidated, and so I look at that intervention as something that really mediated in our lives. And for that matter, the histories of these things are important. Over and over again, you find lots of shops or buildings being re-roofed every now and then. Probably if this material or mediums did not intervene in our lives, our architecture would have taken a different things. Probably we would have developed our brick houses or mud houses into a more technologically advanced form of building, which would have been more convenient for us. The heat that this material generates is very inconvenient for the tropics. And so what I do is I try to exchange these old materials for newer ones. I try to get them stronger or new corrugated roofing sheets, and I exchange. Sometimes I collect them from building sites. Sometimes I go to fitting shops and slums around and try to give them better conditions, or even if I have to buy them from those who use them and give them newer ones, because they might have buildings or structures that have leakages, that have worn out stuff. So these materials have layers of histories in them, intervening in individual lives and so on and so forth. So I use them for my masks, and because of these layered sort of histories in them. I also use the lithographic plates, which intervene in the lives on the continent as well, because when the colonization came with some form of modernity, the oral traditions or the forms of transmitting knowledge and cultural histories to younger generations did go down and go underground, because they thought some of these ceremonies were fetish and so on and so forth. So the advent of printing also made it that this tradition had to go down gradually. However, the used lithographic plates still have something significant that I see. So I visit small size print houses, because I'm very particular about printing houses that exploit labor. And so I go to these printing houses and I exchange or sometimes acquire some of these used printing plates, which sometimes are used for the production of ends of calendars and so on and so forth. And while they are discarded, they still have histories embedded on them. And so I try to reproduce masks from this. Now, the process of making these masks involves the making of a mold and a model, and trying to place the roofing sheets in between this mold and model. First, the work has been modeled, the mask or images that I take from the internet or are mined from the museums or from text of old ethnographers and like Roger Fry and so on. I get them modeled in clay by my assistants or myself, because the collective nature of working is very important to me. So from the state of even collecting the materials or acquiring the materials, I'll go with my team of studio assistants and friends and colleagues who are present in my work. So we make the work in a model of clay and then take a mold in resin and fiberglass. Of course, these are very modern materials, but the clay is a very traditional material as well. So we make a mold and a model, the male and female, to use heterosexist language for that matter. And we place the sheet in between them and try to exert pressure on it to form my mass. And so in the end, the nature of the pressure will determine the kind of mass that will come out. Now, spontaneity is very important to me, and for that matter, I relate it to how the colonization affected each individual on the continent. Of course, it affected everybody differently. And so while I try to produce serial masks from the same model and mold, I do not know exactly how each mask is going to come out, because the nature of the pressure that is exerted on it depends on whoever is standing. Whilst we were working, one of my guys realized that we could just virtually stamp. It's akin to stamping or embossment or intaglio sort of thing, or sort of repose, and then you could just put the sheet in between the mold and model, and then just virtually jump on it a few steps, and then the mask comes out. And as it comes out, each one is raptured, and so they all come out differently. So as I try to make these things like a bricoleur, they look similar, but they are not the same sort of. So those are the kind of things that I make. And all these plates also, the lithographic plates also have certain histories peculiar to each plate and what they use them for. So you find out that some have histories of the university, some have histories of schools, some have political histories of Ghana, some have, calendars that have been made from maybe the Ashanti king and his celebrations and so on and so forth. So I create some sort of docufiction from these things, and so I reconfigure them also in all my installations and so on and so forth, so that my masks come out in the end as a form of movement, translation, transformations, mediating in different spaces and so on, and very, very interactive. I look at these technologies as events that will definitely mediate in our lives. As I sit here, I still think that I need to do more in terms of photography and video and stuff like that, because we should always relate this technology. So I look at the earlier technologies of making traditional mediums like wood and clay, combining them with technologies as they come, because I see things melting down into one pot, and so you could not just break away and divide them. So you need to make do with the various technologies, and that's one finding. So I'm influenced also by the American minimalists and Russian constructivists between the interbellum, the period between the First and Second World War, and I look at the technologies also that they use. So you could see embossment also in my work, you could see repose in my work, you could see the lithography, you could see some form of sometimes etching, touching the mask to extent, and at the same time stamping. All those techniques are very, very important, because they mediated one or the other in the culture and the people's lives. So I take advantage of some of these things and see how best. And so like I said, I see myself like as a bricoleur, so I try to make do or improvise technologies to make my work. I remember in the beginning we used, going back to the printing industry, I started by using the simple press, which was used to bind books. And so what we did was, it was a simple press with a revolver. So you put the male and female to use the heterosexist language, that's the mold and the model, and I place the sheet in. And when we revolve it clockwise, till it became very tight, with returning and got unmasked out. In the same way, you could not measure the degree of, exactness or tightness, and so they still came out raptured, and that is what I wanted. But you could not determine the outcome per se. At the same time, it was a very slow method. So we tried, and then, like I said, somebody said, why don't we try? This is just pressure. Why don't you jump? So at the point, we got all the complete molds, different molds, people jumping up and down. It became very exciting and interesting. So we adopted that.